Part 3 of the Battle of Florida. A lot has changed, but will the result of the series change?
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Friday, April 19th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MondoMan12, follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. Welcome back, guys, to the show. Very excited to be here, as now we are 2 days away from Game 1 of the Stanley Cup playoffs between the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning, taking place on Sunday. We'll break down more of the schedule later on in the show, but it is a Friday, which means it is a Fairbanks Friday edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Nich Fairbanks is here. Nich, welcome back to the show. Very excited to have you here and just to dig in more of the changes, statistical comparisons, and everything else in relation to this series. So I'm excited, man. And also, I see you have a little bit of a scruff going on here. Are you keeping that, or are you shaving right before Game 1? Hold on, let me unmute you real quick. There, go.
Hey, thanks for having me back. For the listeners, it'll be shaved by Sunday.
I can't really tell on mine, but there's a little bit there, so I'll consider shaving mine, as last year was a kind of a fail, as it didn't connect fully with mine. So let's see if it could happen this time around, assuming that the Panthers would make a long run. That's the way that we would it would happen. But as far as this series, as far as the Panthers and what has changed, because just their overall makeup and overall style of play has changed so much with the Panthers. I mean, you look at the difference between rosters as far as for the Panthers side of things. 2022, 11 players were on the team for the Panthers in that 4-game sweep in the second round. Eight players were in that 2021 team. The biggest additions for the Panthers were Reinhart as a big addition. Lundell signed his ELC going in between 2021 and 2022. So they've had that experience along with the rest of the group, the second go round for the Panthers. But you know, there's another big factor for the Panthers here, as far as Paul Maurice being a part of the mix now, Matthew Tkachuk being a part of the mix.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that second round sweep too, let's not forget that was what triggered the coaching change, the big trade, all that. So it's kind of like, weirdly, it's like a thank you, Tampa, for sweeping the Panthers, as far as like looking themselves in the mirror to make these kind of changes necessary.
Definitely, and you can go a little bit further back too. I mean, look what Columbus did to Tampa Bay after they set their record-setting season. Bobrovsky shut them out and swept them, and then following that, they had to make some changes that were necessary to, win the next couple of cups. So, change is good. I think the biggest factors in this series right now, if you're looking at it, is that Paul Maurice has already instilled a system that Florida was not playing a couple years ago that has proven that it works. Now, is it going to work in a 7-game series against the Tampa Bay Lightning? Florida Panthers probably have a little bit of pause for that, but we are definitely going to see. And then you have the Matthew Tkachuk factor that that you have to really consider, because he was brought in to be a net front presence and to change the identity of this team. So last year, we couldn't see that against Tampa, but we saw it against Boston, we saw it against Toronto, and we saw it against Carolina. So can't wait to see what he brings to the table. And remember, guys, he used to hate Edmonton, but now he hates Tampa more.
Great opening statement from you, my friend. And also, you think about where else the Panthers have changed, as far as that, even with the run that they went on last year. It's like the Panthers have hit their growth spurt in a way as a franchise as far as like getting through, but there's still obviously the narrative of, oh well, you didn't have to face the Tampa Bay Lightning. Well, here's your chance about going through when it comes to facing them immediately, which is going to be a great opening challenge. And now obviously with the playoff format, which we are now used to, the rivalries are going early as far as playoff series. So gives a great opportunity. I mean, LA and Edmonton are facing for the third straight year in the postseason. You think about the changes that the Panthers made even this time around, where the Stahl brothers aren't here anymore. Colin White's not here. Nico Mikkola is part of the mix, who leads the team in hits and blocks too with the Panthers. I mean, Gus Forsling has officially developed into that number one defenseman, and having that 8-year deal along with it that starts next year, plus 56, the most since 1996, Vladislav Konstantinov, which still fortunate how his career came to an end in the 90s, but still how the Panthers have developed. Do you think that growth spurt is a right term for the Panthers there, as far as like how 2022 and to now has been for them?
I think that's one way of being able to look at it. You had to have some growing pains, and we all have that growing up, trying to understand the world around us and trying to figure out where we fit in, if we do fit in, and understanding what it is in order to survive. And I think Florida's kind of had to figure itself out. So not only was it a growth spurt, but then it kind of found its identity after the trade for Kachuk. And really, they've not been the same since. You could also add in that they are much deeper now than the Tampa Bay Lightning, so they've learned from that. They have some role players that are actually playing huge roles. You got like Kevin Stenlund on the fourth line, and you have Gadjevich, who I don't know if he's going to get in, the first or second game, but depending on how the team plays. But the team is much bigger now, and maybe that wasn't such a response to Tampa Bay, more to Vegas, but this is something that Florida now has that Tampa does not. And this is something they could use to their advantage. So while it is a growth spurt, I think it's also maturity as well that goes along with it.
Yeah, you saw the necessary changes for the Tampa series the year before, and then the necessary changes for the Panthers outside of Vegas, because what's happened in the last 2 years since they've been eliminated. 2022 was against the Eastern Conference champions in Tampa Bay before losing to Colorado, and then last year facing off against the Stanley Cup champions right before losing in 5. So you're just trying to get one step closer and observing what the other team does well too. And also on the Tampa Bay Lightning side of things, a lot of changes for them too. Yanni Gourdes, Barclay Goodrow, Andre Palat, Alex Killorn no longer there, and Mikhail Sergachev won't play in this series. Victor Hedman's a little older with along with the injuries. Well, Aaron Ekblad has also dealt with his fair share of injuries too, and all. Steven Stamkos this year, 40 goals, 41 assists, but a minus 21 for him too. So that's a little bit, but I mean, carrying this team is Nikita Kucherov for almost about 50 points more than the next closest guy in Braden Point too. So that's another thing as far as what has changed in Tampa Bay versus who has stepped up more, because the core is still there. You've added complementary pieces in Nicholas Paul to Anthony Duclair recently, who we just got a comment here asking, will Duclair indulge his past knowledge of how the Panthers play? And I think there's going to be a little bit of that talk in the locker room for Tampa Bay too, about what they're looking for as far as when pucks are in the corner, how they get their sticks in the neutral zone too, how their first pass is going to look too. So that's a little bit of what Duclair can bring to the table on the Tampa Bay side of things.
Yeah, and I think it's, one of those storylines that, you'll see if Tampa does take that type of information and is able to use it. You brought up a couple of players that they have now. They're not Panther killers. They're not like Killorn. They're not like Yanni Gourde. They're not like Killorn and stuff like that, where you knew game in, game out that those guys were going to be a presence and they were going to bring it, and they're going to be a net front presence. I have to say that probably Nick Paul, Isama, and there's another player that his name is just escaping me right
Brandon
now.
Hagel?
Yeah, he's another guy that has the speed and will get underneath your skin and everything, but I think we'll be able to contain him. No, the Sorelli.
Sorelli.
That's
Yep.
a guy that I don't think gets talked about enough, considering that he brings probably the best defensive game from a forward on that team, so much that he's being considered for Team Canada. So I think that's one player we need to look out for and to see what he's being matched up against and to see how Barkov and Lundell are going to be then positioned, because I know they're going to be playing defense first. But one thing I do want to say is that Florida does have the edge in this because, listen, they were able to shut down Marner. They were able to shut down Matthews and Nylander last year. Who does Florida need to focus on really to make sure that Tampa doesn't go? Is it just Kucherov and point, or is it just going to be Kucherov? So that's the big question I have.
You could obviously Stamkos on the power play is definitely one who can kill you for sure. Don't let the -21 fool you there, because he still gets a lot of them on the power play. Well, because also let's also include the fact that there's no Pat Maroon there to be that rat. Ryan McDonough, who was a big part of their blue line when it came to winning the cups. That's a big part of them when it came to turning over the roster when you win. And obviously with the salary cap, that's what it's made for as far as that. But as far as looking ahead, as far as like who to look out for, we're going to transition to segment number 2. We're going to discuss more about the statistical comparisons between the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. We're going to discuss that more on this live edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Policy Genius. And Policy Genius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. It saves you time and money so you can provide your family with financial safety starting today. Policy Genius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team and licensed experts is on hand to help you talk through it. Talk to a team of award-winning agents who will walk you through the process step by step. Your work-life insurance policy may not offer enough protection for your family's needs. Policy Genius gives you the unbiased advice from a licensed expert supporting them. They have no incentive to recommend one insurer over the other, so you have trust in their guidance. Thousands of 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit of their need. Check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policy Genius. Head to policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL or click on the link in the description to get your free insurance quotes and see how much you can save. That's policygenius.com/LockedOnNHL. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day long? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you the can't-miss analysis and opinions, news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Back on this Friday, April 19th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Friday. Here with Nich Fairbanks. And Nick, let's discuss more about the statistical comparisons between the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning going into this one. We spoke about all the guys that the Tampa Bay Lightning are without now, even with all the changes from their 2020 Stanley Cup run all the way to 2022. Also, even some depth guys aren't there anymore, like the bottom pair defensemen of Jan Rutta and Zach Bogosian too. So I wanted to include those guys too. But also, as far as even strength, power play, special teams, the Tampa Bay Lightning do have the statistical advantage as far as that, with the Bolts being first in power play percentage, Panthers are 8th. Penalty kill, they're neck and neck with Tampa Bay being 5th and Florida 6th. But 5-on-5 has been the key. And obviously, things can change in the postseason. We spoke about Andre Vasilevsky missing the first part of the season and the Tampa Bay Lightning just needing to stay afloat. And there was even a time where Vasilevsky was about 900 save percentage. But also with the Tampa Bay Lightning and how they give up shots in the middle, with all the depth being depleted for them. Obviously, there's still Victor Hedman. There's Eric Chernak with the mix too. But as far as 5-on-5 goals against is the biggest one that really favors the Panthers. The Panthers are first, which the Panthers just fell 1 goal short of winning the Jennings Trophy. Congratulations to Connor Hellebuck. Bolts are 28th as far as goals against. So that also tells me that there's our high quality danger chances that's happened mostly at 5-on-5 too. So key, stating an obvious here, stay out of the penalty box for the Panthers.
Yeah, and isn't that been like kind of the storyline for the last 2 seasons under Paul Maurice? Is like, hey, let's stay out of the penalty box. I mean, we saw it in the first round last year. I mean, the Panthers almost got walloped by Boston just because they couldn't stay out of the box, and Boston
59% penalty kill.
Yeah, exactly. And it almost took the Panthers out. Now you have the league's number 1 power play unit coming in, and are you going to continue to give them opportunities? They have 3 or 4 trigger guys on that power play. So I just think that, if Florida's going to play smart, they got to play 5-on-5. They got to make sure that, that they're not, giving up chances. They're not, how should I say? They're playing very smart, and they're making sure that the play is down in Tampa's zone and they're not spending time in their own defensive zone, because that's when they can get in trouble. So, just play smart hockey and play to the identity in which Paul Maurice has brought in.
And you mentioned the word maturity as far as the Panthers, what they've been through from 2022 to now and all. And also with the Cats, you got to realize that with this, maybe if you were to face against Toronto, you'd be able to bait them into penalties. This group, discipline, the coach that they have there, they know that what the Panthers style, they're going to try to drag you in to when it comes to them taking a penalty and trying to even it up and get it to 4-on-4 too for the Panthers too. So that's another thing that you got to realize, that they're not going to fall for it. And also you mentioned the matchups too, as far as that with Anthony Cirelli probably gonna win a Selke sometime in the future if it's not Barkov. But so we're gonna likely see when the series shifts to Tampa, it's going to be interesting to see what John Cooper matches up the Cirelli line with. For the Panthers, they're likely going to put Gustav Forsling when Nikita Kucherov is on the ice, as far as like keeping eyes on him, because also Kucherov's extremely deceptive once he fights the puck for the puck near the half wall too, and just can snipe it down the middle too for a quick one-timer. So he's just incredibly great at that too. Shots against too. We going back to the whole staying out of the box and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Shots against, the Panthers are third, the Bolts are 11th too. And the Panthers, they possess the puck. Obviously, we speak about their forechecking too, and that's really going to need to continue as far as that. And when that third pair for the Tampa Bay Lightning are on the ice, or even their bottom 6, that's where you really got to feast, because I mean, you think about Lundell getting some playoff experience, which he spoke about it recently too. Eetu Luostarinen's been here for a while now. Evan Rodriguez, who's played with Sidney Crosby and Nathan McKinnon, that is valuable too. And you even mentioned Stenlund right at the top. 10 players are, for the most part, set for the Panthers. All you got to really do is figure out who are going to be your wingers on that fourth line. And we speak of, national radio has spoken about the top 2 lines are going to be canceling each other out. What are you going to do as far as that bottom 6 and special teams? And Doug Plagans also spoke about what are the qualities of a great team, how you can win on the road, and how's your special teams too. So that's really what I'm looking at as far as the bottom 6 for the Panthers, bottom pair as well, along with Tampa Bay's.
So I'm really glad that you brought up the point that, we're playing the Tampa Bay Lightning, so it's not like playing the Toronto Maple Leafs where we can goat them into penalties. Tampa is known to sell some penalties, and I think it starts with John Cooper. He's a lawyer by trade, so he's a very smart individual who can probably work the refs, and he's said as much that he will try to get him to get the refs to kind of look at a play a certain way and try to get a call. This video has been circulating the last week when Anthony Duclair gave Kucherov a little pat on the back of the knee, and he went down like he got shot. Yep. Is Kucherov above that? I don't think so. He'll sell a call, and Will it hurt the Panthers? We'll see. But the Panthers, while they're the ones that are favored, let's be honest, if you look at every outlet, they can't let that get to their heads, and they have to play very smart because Tampa knows this game already, and they're going to take every chance they can get to take it to the Panthers. And you say, Doug says, it's all about winning on the road and also on your special teams. I argue that you have to also have a role player step up. Is it going to be in your bottom six that's going to step up? Is it going to be a Lundell? Is it going to be Rodriguez? Is E2 going to have another great series like he did against Boston? Or is it going to be Stenlund? Or is it going to be another fourth liner that, just really helps with the forecheck and causes so much havoc that, the bottom six of Tampa can't do anything, and John Cooper's got to rethink what he's got to do. So many different things that the Panthers can do, and it's going to come down to if they can control themselves, and then also if they can dictate the play with their forecheck.
Yeah, also Doug mentioned 5-on-5 goal differential, and the Panthers finished the season with their 5-on-5 goal differential at plus 35. So that is also big as far as like what the Panthers can do as far as that, even though someone like Sam Reinhart has gone 14 straight games now without a power play goal. So also, how can they take advantage of their opportunities when they do have a man advantage? So going to be something to pinpoint and watch when we get to the weekend where we are just waiting. We're just over 48 hours until game one of the Battle of Florida between these two teams. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we're going to discuss the schedule between the two. When is game one, and what are the gaps in between? So we're going to discuss that and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. And I've been told that I have a competitive side. We all do. And my competitive side is a big fan of Monopoly Go. I'm sure you've heard it. It's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great plot twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up to amazing cities that bring you big money. The best part is messing with my friends. I can charge them rent on my iconic properties just like classic Monopoly, but now you can also heist their vaults of riches for myself. And the leaderboards show me who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just my competitive side that loves it. You can team up with friends and people all over the world in timed tournaments to earn huge awards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. Third and final segment here on this Friday, April 19th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Friday. Also, I want to send a big congratulations to Matthew Tkachuk on now being engaged too. So big congratulations to him. So just in time for the Stanley Cup playoffs, and just to gotta love the timing of it when it comes to that for him. But let's go right into the series between the two and the schedule. So game one of the series between Florida and Tampa Bay. Game one will take place on April 21st at 12:30 on ESPN. Game two on the Tuesday, 7:30 on ESPN2. Game 3 on the 25th, 7 p.m. on TBS. And game 4 will be on April 27th at 5 p.m. on TBS. Every game will be a one-day gap with the exception of a possible game 7. Also, Nick, every time I think Battle of Florida, first thing that goes into my head is Star Wars. All the duels and the intensity of a rivalry go right into this. So game 7, a possible game 7 will come on May the 4th. So I think that's really, I think that's really fitting when it comes to this matchup for the two. So I love the alternating days so that we just get it right back quick when it comes to that. I love it as far as the format of the schedule. Obviously, the only day that we couldn't see a game was on that Friday on the 26th due to a concert at Amalie Arena. So everything worked out as far as that for the Panthers. We still don't know who the national broadcast is on Sunday. I will tweet that out when I have knowledge of it. But it won't be Sean McDonough and Ray Ferraro. They'll be doing Rangers Capitals on Sunday. So, but just overall, your thoughts on this one. And I can't give my prediction right now. I have to wait till my crossover with Locked On Lightning. But your thoughts on the schedule and all that, and your prediction for the series, my friend.
So if this series goes 7, my Star Wars day of May the 4th is going to be totally messed up. I won't be able to go to movie theaters to watch all the movies. You know, I won't be able to get my Darth Maul in because I think he's my favorite character now that, you know, you have the whole series in there. You got Clone Wars and all that stuff. But we're not here to talk about Star Wars. But just let's hope it doesn't go 7. So I will say, as Alex Baumgartner did say, no back-to-backs is great. I don't know why the NHL ever did that. I understand for scheduling purposes and TV's scheduling, stuff like that. But come on, this is the playoffs. This is now a marquee thing. And now the Battle of Florida is probably going to be the second most watched series, in my opinion. But to schedule them on a Sunday at 12:30, that's, I don't know. They could have fit them into like a 6 o'clock, but I understand that they had to wait for the Western Conference to be done, and then they scheduled them later because of the time zones and everything, and probably how ESPN schedules everything. But honestly, I think that's the only game I have a gripe about. The other 3 games and everything, thank God it's one game, day off, one game, day off. Let us relish in how the games are. Let the teams have rest and fine-tune what they have to do. And, you know, let's just get after it, man. Like, I wanted Saturday. I wanted this damn thing to start tomorrow. It's not going to. We have to wait another day. So exactly. I just, you know, I think I'm just ready to go, man. So as far as my prediction, I was really hoping you weren't going to put me on the spot with this because I have not told anybody. I have not said anything about this, but I am going to say it's going to be Florida in 6. And the last 2 times that I made the predictions, again, Florida and Tampa Bay, I've picked Tampa. So this is 3rd time's the charm. I think Florida has enough to get over the hump this time. So it's going to be Florida in 6, and I think Game 6 will probably be an overtime winner.
Oh, how fitting would that be?
My thing is, I want to say it's going to be Carter Verhaeghe, but I have a feeling it's just going to be a goal like John Tavares where it kind of just like squeaks in. So maybe Matthew Tkachuk.
So what you're saying is a goal that is originally saved, the goalie can't find it, and then knocks it in on the free puck.
How fitting would that be against Bassey?
Oh, that would be, because I remember how heartbroken I was sitting in my FIU dorm in Parkview watching that Game 6 at the Barclays Center, and just how heartbroken I was at the time. And I always tell this story. I had tickets to a possible Game 7 ready against the Islanders if that were to happen, but got my refund and all that. And it's the saddest refund I've ever had when it came to a sporting event that I really, really wanted to go to in person. But when it comes to this one, I will say before I give my prediction on my next episode, I do think the Panthers, and I think you guys can notice where I'm leading towards based on how I'm talking, and someone brought up a great point who actually texted me during the show, and they said, quote, honestly, the Panthers' 5th line is stronger than the 4th line they had in the Cup final last year. So whoever the scratches are, close quote. And this is everything that Bill Zito worked for in the summer with the very little that he had to work with. Thankfully for the Panthers, they went through that pain of the buyout money of Keith Yandel and still making the final after all that. So you have a little bit more room for your depth, the systems in place for the Panthers and all. And for them, it's just really about taking in the moment and knowing what's on the other side, and just saying this is the test that you need to pass in order to finally get over that emotional hump. It's not just about the play on the ice, but emotionally, because just imagine what this offseason would be for the Cats if they can't get past Tampa Bay, which would be 3 out of out of the last 4 years for them?
It really depends on how. I guess
Mhm.
if Florida were to lose this series, it depends on in what fashion. Now, you didn't see a whole lot of changes after they lost the first round series 4-2, right?
Yep.
Then they come off the emotional win of their first playoff series in a long time against the Capitals, and then you go and play Tampa and you drop 4 straight. I think if Florida takes them to 6 or 7 and they end up losing the series, I think you still minorly tweak what's going on, but you also have to figure out what is it that Tampa did to effectively beat Florida. Is it a maturity thing? Is it that they were able to draw more penalties than Florida, or was it just because Florida was so invested or wrapped up emotionally in this that they let the emotions get to them? So I think that there's just multiple ways to be able to look at this, and they just need to play their best and be on their best behavior. And I wanted to bring this up. That's probably why we're not going to see Ryan Lomberg in the game 1 lineup, just because the last few games that he's been in or inserted, not the best plays he's been making, in a couple of penalties that have, really kind of, put the Panthers back.
Yeah, and early in the series is where you usually see the post whistle stuff. Where later in the series, it's hey, you don't want to make a mistake that costs you too. So it might be the later in the series for the Cats too. And it's crazy because you think about what happened. The 2 series in 2021 and 2022 had just different scripts as far as the revolving door of goaltending in the first one, and then the goaltending was great in 2022, but you went 1 for 13 in that series on the power play, 1 for 31 in the whole 10 games of the postseason. Didn't have Mason Marchment in the second round series too for the Panthers, but still, it wouldn't have made that much of a difference where the Panthers would have won the series too. But also block shots for the Tampa Bay Lightning. That was really what happened for the Panthers. Vasilevsky didn't really beat them until game 4, where the Florida Panthers, let's not forget, there's that rumor about what happened after game 3 going out and about in the night too. And the Panthers, they showed up in that game 4 firing on all cylinders on that second end of a back-to-back too. And it's for them, you that formula that Tampa Bay used to win, that's what the Florida Panthers have been trying to do since. So we'll see based on how that is going to be as far as preventing things to go towards the middle, and Sergei Bobrovsky having time to make saves, freeze the puck, and the Panthers defense to just clear out of their own end and force it to the perimeter, win their board battles, and have that first breakout pass out, which is so important when it comes to getting and transitioning and setting your own pace for them too. But Nick, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. The Panthers are just about to hit the ice for practice at Fort Lauderdale 2 days before game 1, before they host against the Tampa Bay Lightning. So tell everybody where they can follow you online, my friend.
Thanks for having me on. I'm glad that we could preview the series. I hope everybody is ready and locked in to go. Everybody can follow me on X or Twitter at Prudentia0. Let's show up on Sunday and actually show Tampa that we have the arena is ours and that we deserve to win. And yes, we do want the big trophy, the best trophy in sports. So, Armando, thank you again for having me on.
And for the fans, if you're attending the game, wear red, please. Do that is what the Florida Panthers are campaigning as far as their redemption tour. So wear red if you're going on Sunday and to every home game. And once again, Nick, thank you so much. And we will have a Fairbanks Friday for game 3. So can't wait also for our next show. So see you then, my friend.
See you then.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey, Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez with Nich Fairbanks, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.